First of all, thanks everybody for watching my YouTube channel. My name's Lecture Fan. Do conservative content on Twitch and YouTube. LCTR Fan on Twitch. Anyways, it's April 13th, 2020. We just got done watching the latest coronavirus press conference. I wanted to give some thoughts on it. I've watched almost all of these coronavirus task force briefings. I've read tons of mainstream media, aka fake news, my entire life. I do media analysis, political analysis. I practice law. I've done all these things, so I'm just going to give some thoughts on this. First of all, I thought it was absolutely hilarious that the Democrat media had the gall to bring up the 10th Amendment during this conference. It's so just disingenuous and dishonest. I know what the American left thinks of the 10th Amendment. I know what the Democrats in the media think of the 10th Amendment. They think it's completely meaningless. They think it's nothing but a truism. They don't think it has any independent value. They teach people in universities and in law schools that it's a garbage amendment, that it means nothing, that it adds nothing. And these Democrats in the media have been begging Trump to issue national lockdown orders, nationwide lockdown orders and quarantine orders from the very beginning of this thing. Well, of course, from the very beginning, they were all downplaying it and stuff. But over the last couple of weeks, from the very beginning where Trump did the 15 days to slow the spread and then the 30 days to slow the spread. Since the beginning of when the federal government actually issued guidelines, these Democrats in the media have been begging Trump to do a lockdown order, and Trump has been saying, no, I'll leave that up to the governors. I'll leave that up to the states to do it. And of course, the Democrats have never once given a rip about states' rights or constitutional limits on the authority of the federal government or anything else. And then today, when Trump says, I have the authority to open up the economy, because the Democrats and the liberals have made it painfully obvious that they want coronavirus to be really bad. They want coronavirus to be really bad, and they want our reaction to it to be even more severe because that hurts the economy. And they know that you hurt the economy, you hurt Trump, and it's all about hurting Trump. And so they want the economy to stay crashed. They want people to lose their jobs. They want Americans to lose their homes and not be able to buy food, not be able to provide for their families because they want to hurt Trump politically. It's very disgusting, but that's where they're at. And so they don't want us to open up the economy, not because of a virus. They don't want us to open up the economy because they want to hurt Trump. And so that's been obvious for anybody that's paying attention at all for years and years and years. I mean, the Democrats and the media have lost their integrity. I don't know why we listen to people who believe that Trump colluded with Russia. These people told us for years and years that Trump colluded with Russia, and yet now we're still supposed to listen to him, and we're still supposed to act like they have any credibility whatsoever. So Trump says, yeah, I have the authority as president to open up the economy. And they say, well, President Trump, you don't have the authority to do that. You don't have. What about the 10th Amendment? It's like, you guys have been sitting here saying all along that Trump does have the authority to shut down the economy. And now Trump wants to open up the economy. Now all of a sudden you're this huge states' rights supporter. You're this huge 10th Amendment supporter, and Trump doesn't have the authority to open up the economy. It's like so dishonest and disingenuous. I mean, I've never seen such a blatant example of just complete dishonesty and disingenuousness from anybody in my life as when this Democrat in the media today pointed out the 10th Amendment to Trump. It was the most preposterous thing I've ever heard in my life. I have actually been consistent. I've said Trump does not have the authority to issue a nationwide lockdown order for various reasons. I mean, the way you would analyze this is you ask first, one, does the Constitution give the power to the government to do this? And then number two, if the government can do it, number two is the way it's done, consistent with not violating people's rights. And so, but if you were actually consistent, you would basically say, if you were going to say that Trump has the authority to issue a lockdown order on the country, you would have to then say that Trump also has the authority to open up the country. Because your theory for the lockdown order is that it's interstate commerce. It impacts the economy, interstate commerce clause, blah, 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 blah. I could do a whole video on interstate commerce clause stuff. But for you to say that Trump has the authority to issue a lockdown order and lock down the entire national economy, but he doesn't have the authority to open up the economy when some Democrat governor wants to keep the economy shut down, is completely inconsistent, contradictory, and hypocritical. It's like, let's see, does shutting down an entire state's economy have an impact on the interstate commerce? Does shutting down an entire state's economy, does that impact the national economy? Of course it does. And so these Democrats in the media saying Trump doesn't have the authority to do this is just so disingenuous. It's like, maybe if you were going to take that position, you shouldn't have been begging for the last several weeks for Trump to do a nationwide lockdown. And then, you know, it's so funny. You can already tell that the media and the Democrats, they already, as soon as Trump played the video today during the press conference, it was obvious what they had on their mind in terms of what was going to be the narrative. And the narrative is Trump used government resources and the office of the presidency to engage in political campaigning, which is against the law and violates campaign finance and violates this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no. Wrong. Playing a video that actually tells the truth and informs the American people of the real truth is not campaigning. That's the job of the president. The president should be telling the American people the truth. And he had to, because the New York Times ran this complete hoax of a story about how Trump totally screwed up the response to the coronavirus and blah, 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 blah. And it was just completely fake. I went through the entire article, paragraph by paragraph, and pointed out every single fake part of it, which was literally, there was something fake in almost every single paragraph in the entire article. The truth is that Trump was very early on in responding to the coronavirus. He was very aggressive. And like, you can't criticize Trump for taking too long to shut down the economy when nobody else at the time was proposing shutting down the economy. Democrats in the media were downplaying the virus in January and February. They were saying it's not a big deal. They were saying go to Chinatown. They were saying it's racist to cut off travel from China. They were saying it's racist to not go out to parades in Chinatown in New York City in January and February. It's just the most ridiculous assertion. It's like, and it's classic Democrats asking Fauci, if we would have shut down the economy sooner, would that have saved lives? It's like, well, yeah. Banning cars would also save lives. Does that mean that people are proposing that right now? Does that mean that it's a mistake if you don't do that right now? Of course not. You can't criticize Trump for not shutting down the economy sooner when literally China was lying to us. We had false information and nobody was proposing shutting down the economy at that time. And in fact, people were criticizing Trump for being too aggressive in his response to the coronavirus. So it's absolutely preposterous. I mean, that the dishonest attacks by using that Fauci quote, which Fauci did nothing wrong. He just said, yeah, if we would have shut down the economy sooner, yeah, we would have saved lives. Like, duh. But nobody knew what was going on at the time. China was lying to us about this. Nobody was proposing shutting down the economy, so it's a stupid question. Frankly, what Fauci should have done is been more aggressive in attacking the media when they asked him that question, being like, I know what you guys are doing. You're asking a stupid hypothetical that's not based in reality. It's a hypothetical based on the past, which is like, you don't have to ask a hypothetical. We know what happened in the past. You're asking a stupid hypothetical to try to attack Trump, and you're a dishonest, partisan hack masquerading as a non-biased journalist. Now, quit it. That's complete BS. Is what Fauci should have said. Instead, he was like, well, yeah, of course, if you shut down the economy sooner, you would have saved lives. He should have said what I just said and then, gone through it all and attacked that scumbag reporter who asked that question. The other thing that came up is that the Democrats are trying to tack on all their little socialist ploys onto the PPP program. And they tried to do this thing with the very first bailout or relief package or stimulus package, whatever you want to call it. They try to tack on their little pet projects, their little leftist pet projects on a coronavirus relief bill. And it's just so gross. It's like here we have a bipartisan effort to try to provide relief to Americans, and the Democrats are using that as an opportunity to try to push their little sick little leftist pet projects, and then actually holding up relief to Americans to get in their own like highly unpopular little sick little leftist programs and pork barrel handouts and everything else to the Kennedy Center and free this and free that and socialism here and socialism there. It's like, I think that's just despicable the way the Democrats have handled this entire thing. The way how dishonest they've been, the fact that they've tried to play politics with this, the facts that they're trying to push their own partisan packages on top of what is a bipartisan program, the PPP program, so the Democrats did this originally. Now they're doing it again as we try to expand the PPP program because it's been incredibly popular program amongst businesses and the American people, and they don't want the Trump administration doesn't want to run out of money. So they're trying to expand the PPP program, and the Democrats are wanting to tack on these unpalatable little pet projects for the left, which is making it difficult to pass this program, which is supported by the people and is a bipartisan program. And the Democrats are withholding support unless we tack on their little socialist ideas. And it's just terrible the way they're playing politics with this coronavirus. Multiple ways they're playing politics. This is just one. Everything else they've been doing is the same way. Like, it's just everything about this virus from the Democrats and the media has been total politics. And it's really quite the turnoff. I thought that then the other thing that Trump said during today's press conference is that the president has total authority. Total authority. When was the last time we ever heard a Democrat say that the federal government has limited authority, that it's a government of enumerated powers and that there is not authority to do this or not authority to do that? These Democrats in the media were literally asking Trump for the last 3 weeks, why don't you issue a nationwide lockdown order, which would require total authority from the president? And then the president says, I have total authority. And then they're like, who told you that? Who told you that? That's not right. That's not right. You don't have total authority. We have states' rights in this. We have constitutional rights. And it's just like, you guys are so disingenuous. Like, I've been consistent. I'll be consistent right now. I don't think that Trump is right when he says that the president has total authority. I don't think that just because we're in an emergency or just because we're in a pandemic that our rights go away and the president has total authority to do whatever he wants and the Constitution goes away and our rights go away just because there's an emergency. In fact, I think the opposite. I think our rights are even more important during a pandemic or an emergency, and I've done another video that's on my YouTube channel about that too. But I'll be consistent. I'll actually criticize Trump when he says stuff I disagree with. And so I disagree with Trump, and I would criticize Trump for saying that he has total authority. On the other hand, you got to give Trump credit. Even though Trump has claimed total authority to do whatever he wants, he actually hasn't. This is one thing I actually give Trump a lot of credit for. He actually has not he's not ordered anybody around. He hasn't done a national lockdown. He hasn't taken power into his own hands. He's actually issued guidelines and recommendations and mostly let the states then do what the state wants. That's the good way to go about it. I think the way he's actually done it is great, but I do disagree with him on that. The other thing is, this was despicable too. And this is another, all of these things are examples of how the Democrats and the media are completely inseparable. Whatever the media does is exactly what the Democrats do. Whatever the Democrats do, the media does. And so this whole thing about how Trump isn't listening to the public health experts, you see the same criticism from the media and the Democrats. It's not true. Fauci came out and said literally everything I've told Trump he's done. Like, Dr. Fauci has given like 3 or 4 recommendations and Trump has said yes and done every single one of them. So it's not even a real criticism. It's not even factually a true criticism. But my point is I think it's wrong to hand over the reins of government to unelected career bureaucrats, quote unquote public health experts, quote unquote Dr. Fauci. We elected Donald Trump to be president, not Dr. Fauci. There's also more considerations here than just public health. There's economic considerations. Public health experts don't look at the economic situation. Also, economic crashes have impacts on health, individual health. And so what the Democrats in the media, the Democrats and the media have been wanting Trump to do. He wanted Trump to promise the American people that he will take the advice of the public health experts when it comes to reopening the economy. The media and the Democrats wanted Trump to make a promise that he would turn over the power of the government to public health experts, which would be a complete abdication of his constitutional role. Trump is supposed to make decisions, not Dr. Fauci. Yes, you should listen to Dr. Fauci, but you should also listen to economic experts on the health impacts of an economic crash. You don't just get tunnel vision and just do whatever the public health experts say, because the health experts have tunnel vision. They want what's best for the public health without ever actually looking at what are the individual health impacts of an economic crash, and how does that weigh against the public health benefits of crashing the economy. And so it's just despicable that the way that they're literally begging Trump to abdicate his constitutional role and just turn over the keys of the presidency to Dr. Fauci and just let Dr. Fauci be president, when we didn't elect Dr. Fauci for good reasons. Dr. Fauci is a public health expert. He's not a wonderful leader who can take information from all different kinds of areas and make a good decision like Trump can. More importantly, Trump has been listening to the public health experts. There's no basis or evidence to suggest that he hasn't been or that he won't. And so the attack is just terrible for both of those reasons. One, it's not based in fact whatsoever. Two, it's an absurd request, and Trump is still president, not Dr. Fauci. There are some questions about the WHO, the UN, the WTO. The UN is an illegitimate organization. The United Nations gives the same power to illegitimate countries like China and Russia, where the governments are not legitimate governments. They do not have the consent of the governed. And those countries have veto power on the Security Council. And the UN is made up of governments. And a lot of the governments around the world are dictators and theocrats and everything else. And so why should we listen to an entity like the UN, which is nothing more than a grouping of unelected dictatorships from around the world? It's absolutely terrible. I think we should defund the WHO, the UN, and the WTO. We should have international organizations and have diplomacy and international cooperation, but we should do it with legitimate governments and allies. There's no reason we should be burdening ourselves by having to listen to entities like the WHO, which has proven itself to be controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, one of the most immoral and evil entities on the planet Earth. Governor Whitmer banning non-essential goods was a question that came up. I'm going to do a whole video on the Michigan governor, absolutely out of control. China consequences. That was funny. The media acted like there's going to be no consequences for China, and then Trump said, "You're the last person I'd tell if there was going to be consequences for China," which I thought was funny. Good moment there for Trump. Although I will say, it's a little bit concerning to me that we don't see consequences for China, particularly because the reason I think we're not seeing severe consequences for China is because we depend on China for our medicine. China can cut off our medicine. Think about the position that we've put ourselves in, where China controls all of our medicine, and the U.S. can't do anything to China because in response to the fact that China lied to us, and we now have thousands of Americans dead because of China, because of the way China regulates its wet markets, because of the way China stifled the information, because of China's lies to the American people, because of all of these terrible things China did. We have thousands of Americans dead, and we can't do anything because China could cut off our medicine. Terrible, terrible, terrible place to be in. And I thought, I think it's a fair question to ask Trump about where are the consequences for China. I thought Trump's reaction to that question was maybe a little telling, in that he got pretty upset with the question, and probably because he can't be honest and say, look, we can't do anything to China. They control our medicine. Finally, here, this will be the last thing. This will be the last point that I wanted to make. There's this entire like sort of premise or assumption built into everything the Democrats and everything the media are asking, and it's the assumption or premise is that we've obviously screwed up. What happened? They're asking like, what mistakes were made to get us here, and what do you regret doing, and why didn't we have this, and why didn't we do that? And they're asking questions where literally the assumption is that we failed to respond to this, and boy, how did we fail so bad? We haven't failed. We didn't screw up. The United States has a far less mortality rate than European countries. Europe has a 3 times higher mortality rate than the United States. America's private healthcare system has proven now, beyond any question that there ever existed, that America's private healthcare system is way better than all of these socialist healthcare systems in Europe. And that's proven beyond a fact. Now, did we have too much red tape? Were some mistakes made with our testing, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, but we haven't had hospitals that have been overrun. There hasn't been a single person in America that needed a ventilator that didn't get a ventilator. There hasn't been a single person in America that needed a hospital bed or an ICU bed that didn't get one. We haven't failed. We've responded to this just fantastic. We flattened the curve. We haven't had overrun hospitals. We haven't run out of medical supplies. We have been taking care of everybody. We have a very low mortality rate. Our case counts have flattened. The curve has flattened. Like, I'm so sick of the Democrats and the media asking questions as if the built-in assumption is that, yep, we failed. Now, what do we need to talk about how we failed? What the heck happened with the failing? Why did we fail so bad? It's like, we didn't fail. Quit asking questions with the assumption built in that we failed. We haven't failed. We've successfully dealt with this better than most countries. Rant over.